Hello and welcome to Successful and Sustainable Healthy Habits. I'm Johanna Dunleavy, the Wellness Manager with EFR, and I am bringing you some information that will hopefully give you a different mindset as we move from 2020 into 2021. And every year, and especially this year, I think people are looking to just kind of make some changes and have a fresh perspective on life. And so I want to help you find some ideas and ways to be both successful and sustainable. So 2021 is loading. It is just around the corner, and I think it's safe to say most people are looking forward to a new year. However, just because the ball drops on New Year's Eve or we turn the calendar from December to January does not mean that all of our worries and issues and the different things that have caused a lot of stress and anxiety in 2020 will disappear. So just because we move into a new year does not mean that everything magically is resolved, but it is an opportunity for individuals to maybe take a look at their lives and think, okay, what did I really appreciate about my life in 2020 and what can I continue doing in 2021? What are some of the things that I can improve upon? When I look back at 2020, what are some of the things that maybe I wish I would have done that were within my control that I can start doing in 2021? So use this as an opportunity, not necessarily to see it as some kind of magic pill where, oh, just because it's a new year, everything is going to improve, but look at it from the perspective of it's a new year. What are the small things I can do that will add to my personal well-being? Most people set New Year's resolution goals. The number is actually quite high of those who set goals, but the number is quite low of those who actually follow through and can say, yes, I reached my goal. And so when you look back at research, there was a study done by Forbes, and this is from 2019, so very, very recently, about 8% of people who set a New Year's resolution or New Year's goal actually can say, yes, I achieved that. So we'll talk a little bit about maybe why that number is so small. But first, let's talk about what is a goal. So by definition, it's the end towards which effort is directed or the terminal point in a race. So those are both definitions pulled from the dictionary, but there are other ways you can describe a goal. And maybe some of these words resonate with you or connect with you more than others. So it could be a dream, it could be a purpose, it could be an aspiration. When I look at that list, the words that stick out to me are purpose. I feel when I have a purpose in life, or if I am driven by a purpose, I'm much more motivated to continue working towards it. I also am someone who loves ideas, so I have an idea. And so whatever it is that resonates with you and that you can connect with, choose that. So maybe it's not a resolution or a goal. Maybe it's, this year my ambitions are, this year my purpose is. So think about what really connects with you. So if you set your goal, or your target, or your purpose, or your dream, whatever that word is that you want to use, you make a plan, you get to work, you stick to it, you reach it, all is good, right? Okay, wrong. So if it were that easy, then the number of people reaching their goals would be much higher than 8%. A lot of times we come up with the idea, we make the plan, but we have a hard time getting to work. Or sometimes we come up with the idea or the goal, we forget to make a plan, we jump right into the work, and we have a hard time sticking to it. Setting some kind of intention or goal isn't always, going from point A all the way to Z and hitting all the different letters in between. A lot of the time, it's kind of like you go from A to B to C, back to B, back to A, to B to C to D, and you kind of progress in a different way. And so it's not going to be simple and straightforward, but there are ways that you can be more successful in getting it to be a more direct path versus kind of that circuitous route. And hopefully you won't get stuck kind of in the, I set the goal, I made the plan, but I'm having a hard time getting to work. Maybe you're stuck there. So as you look at this, think about, have you been stuck in even identifying what you want to do? Have you been stuck on sticking to it? Maybe you're missing the planning part. So planning is certainly important. So think about this and how it might relate to you and about the past. So what did you set out to accomplish? So think about that. What was something that you set out to accomplish and what worked? What were the things that were really good about it? And this doesn't mean that you set out to accomplish something and you did, but maybe you got closer to a goal, but maybe you didn't reach it. But what worked, what didn't work? It's good to think about both. Oftentimes we focus too much on what didn't work, but what worked, I think that's really important. And how likely were you to try and try again? So kind of that resilience factor. The past is the past, but it can teach us a lot and it can help us move forward. So I think that reflection about the past is really important. Also, what was your why? So if you wanted to quit smoking, was it financial? Was it health? Was it family? You know, what was your why? I think back to, you know, a friend of mine who I grew up with, her dad was a smoker and she developed asthma. And so he pretty much quit cold turkey because his why was his daughter's health and well-being. When the why is identified, and especially when it's important, it can be a huge motivator, but sometimes we forget about the why. So why do you want to save X amount of money in 2021? Why do you want to find a new job? Why do you want to lose 20 pounds? You know, what is that why? And use that to help drive you closer and closer towards your desired end state. I think it's also really good to identify barriers and roadblocks. We sometimes forget that this is part of the planning process. So you set a goal, you make a plan. It's not necessarily you're planning for all the things you're doing, but you're also maybe planning for what could get in the way. So what are my barriers? What are my roadblocks? And using past experiences, you can pretty quickly identify them. Sometimes a barrier is simply your environment. Sometimes a barrier is another person in your life. It could be the limitations with which, you know, you have time available to do something. So when I think about, you know, living in the Midwest, and this is not a real scenario because I'm not someone who desires to run a marathon ever, but if that were my goal, living in the Midwest, one of my barriers would be I don't like to exercise in the cold. It's hard to run outside when it's snowy and icy. So maybe that's not the best goal for me at this point in my life. Maybe that could be a goal I set later on in the year when the weather improves and I have less barriers. If, for example, you want to save a certain amount of money, what are your barriers? You know, what's your income in versus your income out? And what are some of the roadblocks? Are you trying to maybe pay off certain debts and it will be impossible to reach your savings goal? So think about that. What are some barriers and roadblocks? And use, you know, the past, use history, your personal history to help you identify those. Oftentimes when we set a goal, we don't set it in what we would call or consider a SMART method. And so SMART is not likely a new acronym for you. You've probably encountered SMART goal setting in the workplace or personally, maybe you've worked with a trainer or a health coach. But a lot of times you set SMART goals just, you know, for work, but SMART is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So, you know, what are you wanting to do? How can you measure that you've done it? Is it achievable? Is it realistic given this time frame or this point in your life? And then within what timeline do you want to achieve it? I'm going to give you an example of a few different goals, and I want to talk about which one I think works the best. I have, just for kind of personal background and to understand kind of my perspective, I've worked in the wellness field for you know, over 17 years now, and I've worked in roles where I have consulted with individuals. So I've talked with people about their goals and desired lifestyle changes, and you know, I've talked about behavior patterns. And so it's not hard for me to think of examples of goals that I thought were really helpful and worked really well, and also goals that were a little too much. So which goal works? I want to lose 5 pounds. So at a glance, it's like, okay, yeah, you want to lose 5 pounds. But is it specific? Is it measurable? Is it realistic? Is it achievable? Is it timely? So it's specific in that you want to lose 5 pounds. It's probably realistic. 5 pounds is for most people doable, but by when? It doesn't have that timely. component. What about this one? I'm going to eliminate all junk food, stop drinking soda, and exercise more to lose 5 pounds in January. Okay, we're getting even more specific because now we're identifying what we're going to do, what we want to do, and when we're going to do it. But is it realistic to eliminate all junk food, stop drinking soda, and exercise more? It seems kind of daunting. If that were my personal goal, I would feel overwhelmed. What about this one? I'm going to exercise twice a week and drink 75 ounces of water each day to help me lose 5 pounds by January 31st. So if I were to sit down with someone and their goal were to lose 5 pounds and they told me that they wanted to lose it by January 31st and these were the things that they wanted to do: eliminate junk food, stop drinking soda, exercise more, I would have them be a little more specific about when in January. So I would ask them to give it, by January 31st. I would also have them kind of scale back on all the things that they think they should be doing or need to be doing to achieve this goal and focus on maybe 1 or 2 things. So exercise and only twice a week, because that might be realistic for them. And instead of eliminating, we're going to talk about, we're going to drink water. We're going to drink 75 ounces of water each day. So if I were sitting down with someone, I would kind of steer them towards that third example. With goals, you want to be specific and you want to plan ahead. So exercise more isn't really that specific. It's quite vague, actually. What is exercise more? So you can't really measure or benchmark. If I were to just say I want to exercise more, 1 week I might exercise twice and the next week I might exercise 3 times. But let's say going into this, I typically exercise 4 times a week. So it's like, well, some weeks I exercise more than others, but identifying, okay, I'm going to exercise more and I'm going to exercise how many times a week? So twice a week. Okay, when are you going to do it? So planning ahead, Mondays and Fridays, and maybe even more specifically, when on Mondays and Fridays, 12 p.m. With lifestyle changes and behavior changes, you have to kind of build them into your routine. You have to be very mindful and really plan ahead, especially if it's something that's new and it's not part of your routine. So be specific and plan ahead. And then also remember, less is more. So remember in that second goal example, it was, I'm going to eliminate junk food, I'm going to eliminate soda. So we're really focusing on all the things that we consider maybe our bad habits or the things that we should not be doing. But what about if you're just focusing on something like, hey, I'm going to drink water? Because then you're probably not going to have as much capacity to drink soda. So if you just drink water or carry a water bottle, you're less likely to reach for a soda. And we know that when you stay hydrated, you tend to snack less. And so focusing on kind of the positive instead of what you're eliminating is really helpful. So also reframing the situation, like I just gave that example about the soda versus water, think positive over negative goals. So a negative goal will be, I'm going to stop watching TV after dinner. So maybe you've identified that you need to start exercising more or moving more, and you've noticed that you just kind of sit on the couch after dinner and watch TV. So instead of saying, I'm going to stop that, what if you said something that you are going to do? I'm going to go for a walk after dinner. So it gives you something to look forward to versus something that you can't do. And also helps you achieve that goal of moving more, exercising more often. And then again, think adding over subtracting. So a lot of people focus on elimination. That, I'm going to stop doing this. I'm going to stop eating chips. I'm going to stop drinking soda. I'm going to stop, whatever it is, smoking even. But what about, I'm going to start drinking more water. I'm going to start eating more fruits and vegetables. I'm going to start, an exercise routine. So thinking, adding over subtracting is really helpful. At EFR, we believe that your emotional well-being is the base of your total well-being, and that when that is not solid, when that foundation of emotional wellness or well-being is not solid and in place, it's going to be really hard to build up from there all those other dimensions of wellness to achieve optimal health. So it's not common for someone to set a goal related to their emotional or mental well-being. But what if your goal for the new year were simply just to be more aware of how you feel? What if it were to use your EAP benefit? What if it were to check in with your counselor or therapist X many times over the course of, each month or year, however often you feel is necessary. So oftentimes we really focus on that physical dimension when we're setting goals. Sometimes we focus on the financial, but what about setting a goal related to your emotional well-being or maybe your spiritual well-being? Spiritual could be involvement in causes that you really feel deeply for or believe in. It could be, being more attentive to kind of the spirit within you. And by spirit, I just mean, what brings you energy and what drives you and what motivates you? Are your actions kind of in line with your values and morals and things like that? So there's so many different places to explore within a person. I want you to think broadly, and I also want you to think about your emotional well-being, because we know that when we are feeling better emotionally, we do have more motivation to achieve and pursue some of those other areas of life. I'm a big believer that little changes add up. When I transitioned from my prior job to my job at EFR, I took a pretty big swing in the amount of physical activity I was getting, because in my prior job, I was doing a lot of group fitness and training, and I just had a lot of opportunities to move my body. It was part of my job. And transitioning to EFR, I was transitioning more into an office workspace instead of a fitness center. And it came with sometimes meetings where I didn't have an opportunity to move a lot, or travel where I didn't have an opportunity to go to a fitness center on my lunch break even. So one thing I did was committed to taking the stairs. So if you've ever been to our offices, you know that we're downtown Des Moines and we're on the 6th floor, and I take the stairs. And I still do. It's just something that I decided I could do every day that would be a little change that would add up. So what are some examples of little changes that can add up for you? What little changes can offer big results? Your daily routine matters. So when you're thinking about successful and sustainable healthy habits, what about your daily routine is supporting that? What about your daily routine can be changed? But your routine matters, and building something into your routine can be really helpful and can be really critical in a sense that it helps you kind of move closer to what you want to do or achieve. That resilience factor is huge. If you encounter a barrier or a roadblock, are you going to try to move past it? Or are you just going to meet it and say, oh yeah, that's right, you again. I guess this doesn't work for me. How likely are you to try again? And that kind of goes back to the question I asked earlier, was think about a goal you set, what worked, what didn't work, and then what caused you to try again? What was your why, and did you try again? Accountability is really, really helpful. Letting someone know, especially if it's someone that has an influence on your life. And so the people you live with, the people you work with, whoever you are surrounded by, have a great influence on your life, whether you realize it or not. But if you are wanting to save money, quit smoking, move more, start communicating better in a relationship, whatever it is, occasionally, and actually more than occasionally, oftentimes you need someone else to help you. You often need someone to get on board. Maybe they're not making as drastic of a lifestyle change, but they need to understand what your desired outcome or end state is so that they can at least support your efforts. So accountability is huge. Writing it down is huge. Sharing it, phone a friend, whatever you need to do, have someone help hold you accountable. Motivation is what gets you started, and a habit is what keeps you going. So like I said, building things into your daily routine can be really, really helpful in terms of success. Motivation is what starts everything, right? You're motivated to do something, but that motivation doesn't always last. It's not always going to be the fuel that keeps that goal moving. So a habit is really what keeps you going. So what habits can you develop? And I like to focus on, again, the positive over the negative. So what are habits you can develop instead of what are habits that you need to break? Create habits instead of making resolutions. Maybe that's what you take away from this, that in the new year, you're not going to be focusing on a resolution or a goal, but you're just going to be focusing on a habit or some habits that you think would be helpful in getting you closer to an optimal state of well-being. I want to share an example with you from earlier this year. So back in March, when everything changed, I decided that I needed to figure out a way to both reduce stress and kind of give my body an outlet for movement. And so working from home, not having access to, a fitness center, working from home with a small child, so not being able to just say, oh, I'm going to go for a walk at my own pace or a run. I just didn't have a lot of opportunities, so I committed to daily yoga practices on YouTube with a gal named Yoga with Adrienne Mishler, and highly recommend her, by the way. Have no connection to her. We have no connection to her, but she does a great job of making people feel as though they're included in the yoga community, which can be kind of an intimidating community for a lot of people. But Yoga with Adrienne on YouTube, it has helped me a lot with stress and my physical growth. But yeah, I committed to Yoga with Adrienne, and I did it every day for, almost 3 months. And it just became a habit. It became part of my routine. I sometimes would leave my yoga mat on the floor if I knew I wanted to do it first thing in the morning. So I would plan ahead for it. I would sometimes download the calendars that she had that you could follow so that you didn't have to decide which yoga video you were doing that day. You could just follow her calendar. And so it was kind of there for you. So I created this habit and I prioritized it. It also is a great opportunity for me to practice self-care. So it's my example, and I hope that you can think of other things. Remember to be compassionate when it comes to your goals and ambitions. So I do feel as though we can be our own worst enemy sometimes, but treat yourself like a friend or a partner or a mentor would treat you. So with my Yoga with Adrienne practice, I did it every day, from mid-March through early June. And I remember I missed a day in June because I had something else going on that took precedence. And I kind of beat myself up a little because I broke the streak. I had been doing it every day and I missed a day. And then as I listened to myself or listened to the voice inside my head, kind of being hard on myself, I thought, wait a second, this is not that big of a deal. I can just start again tomorrow. And also, no one said I had to do it every day. And I did it every day for, it was something like 87 days. That should be recognized by a high five, not I can't believe you missed a day. So we can be our own worst critics, our own worst enemies. So remember to be compassionate towards yourself. EFR has a great suite of benefits available to you, so make sure to check out our website, www.efr.org, or call us at 800-327-4692. Life happens, we are here to help, and we would really, really enjoy helping you through whatever is going on in your life. We also have a podcast at EFR. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or you can visit our website, again, www.efr.org/emotionwell. And the podcast is called Emotion Well. I am the host, and every episode has a featured guest, and we're talking about things related to well-being. And actually, our December podcast is one that really connects to the, concept of normalizing a healthy lifestyle. So as you look to maybe set some different intentions in this new year, I would highly, highly recommend checking out the December podcast with Kevin Peterson. And our other podcasts, we have a lot of great different things. Thank you so much for your time today, and make it a great new year.